Welcome back to our interview with Ian Douglass and Rick Jocham about the Slotit Nationals. In part one, we talked about the preparation leading up to the race, qualifying, the qualifying heats, and the semi-mains. We pick up the interview with Rick Jocham starting on the white lane and Ian Douglass starting on the faster black lane.
But now, Rick, you're the top seed because you did get that. Did they change? Did they allow you to pick lanes for the main?
Yes.
Okay, so you picked white. You picked white last year.
Yep.
You like that. White is next to red, and those are the two slowest lanes on the track. Ian stayed in black, which is one of the fastest, and you picked black. Obviously, you had second choice, so you chose black. And it's a fast lane. So the first heat was going to tell a lot, but how close can you stay to him because you're in a slower lane?
Right.
And how did that first heat go? So I've got the results here.
Yeah, Ian, that was the best move of the race right there. That was racecraft to its finest. Go to black, put a good number up there, and have to make me catch him. And
but it's risky because black is a hard lane. It's a high risk, high reward lane.
Yeah.
So if he can put the laps on there, which obviously he did, and he drove it well. So he put the pressure on himself and he did it.
I don't remember how many laps. What was that? 4.5 laps down after the first one?
3. It's
or
40,
after red, 40, I was 4.5 laps.
You had 46, he had 49 and change. So it's about 3 laps difference. And
then we went over, I went to red and he went to blue and put a couple more laps there.
Yep. Yep. So when I saw that first heat, black to white, I figured you'd have to be within about a lap and a half of him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there. So I really thought the race was over. Now,
yeah, I didn't
play out. It's got to play out. There's still 5 lanes to go. But I really thought you dug yourself too much of a hole. So you didn't.
No.
Okay. So the second heat, after the second heat, he's 5 laps up.
And I ran a good red. I ran a really strong red. I only lost a couple laps on that. And I did not have any offs on red. So I thought, okay, now he's got to get to the slow lanes. I'm going to the fast lanes, and we're going to meet someplace in the middle right there towards the end. So that's where I just jumped on it and started running the hot laps on yellow and black.
Yeah, I knew you were going to close the gap because, like you said, you're going to the fast lanes and he's going to the slow lanes, and that's just the way slot car racing works at the top level. You've got to maximize the slow lanes, and you maximize every lane. But you've got to know that if you're going to white, he's on black, he is going to outlap you, and you've got to minimize that, and you can't push on either one and take yourself out of the whole thing.
Yeah. So, and it was, I gained, let's see, on those 2 lanes, I gained about 3.5 laps back, I think, something like that. So I was about a lap and a half down going into the very last.
Yeah, at the halfway point after 3 heats, you're still 4 laps down.
Okay.
But he's going to red.
Yeah.
And after red, which is heat 4 for Ian, you cut it to 3 laps. So he had 191, you got 188 and change, so 2.5 laps. And then going into the last heat, it's 236.4 for Rick, 237.8 for Ian. So 1.4 lap and a half to Ian's advantage going into the last heat. You've got a lap and a half lead, and you're on a good lane. You're both on good lanes, so you're not going to lose out to that. Did you kind of figure? I don't want to say you had it in the bag, but you figure it's yours to lose. If I don't make a mistake, he's not going to be able to catch me.
I mean, you never know what's going to happen, right? Like somebody could come off in front of me. A turn marshal could kick my car somehow. You never really know what's going to happen. So it's never comfortable. I definitely was, when to your point earlier, I wanted the Grand Slam. So I wanted to TQ. I wanted to win the semi. I wanted all of it because I was like, this weekend's going well. I need to just put my foot down and I need to just kind of like, make a statement and just.
He's just getting greedy, Rick.
I was a bit greedy there. So, Rick loves starting on white. And the last time we raced at the Scale Auto race, Rick started on white and I started on black because I know that if I start on black, not only do I get a good start, but I also get a good finish. So I know that I have an opportunity in the beginning to build a lead if I take it. And then at the end, I have an opportunity to claw back a lead or claw back if I need it. Right. So for me, that's what has worked out well for me. The first, like when Marco was coming around asking about who wants what lane, Rick said white, and I was like, okay, red. And then before it was like 5 seconds. I was like, no, wait, Marco, I want black. So I got lucky that he didn't, ask somebody else first, because I would have been pretty hosed at that point. It would have been a totally different race. But yeah, my entire strategy was, I really like black for some reason. The way I set my cars up, they're really quick on black, especially going around the loop. And I was just like, I'm coming out really hot, and I just want to take as much of make as much of a margin as possible. So, even just from literally the start, like I didn't wait to ramp up. I just like hit it. And that was my entire game plan.
So what are you thinking going into the last heat, Rick?
I knew I had to run qualifying times the whole heat. And I was hoping that I could do those times and have him make the mistake. I knew I couldn't make a mistake. I know he couldn't make a mistake. So this was just going to be, okay, this is all out. I got nothing else to lose. I'm going to push his car as hard as I could and end up running a bunch of 6.0s on blue, which is better than my qualifying time. And he never faltered. He never faltered. He ran a spectacular race. He drove one of the best races I've ever seen in a strategic race. He did it all. And yes, he got the Grand Slam.
Thank you.
Just a fantastic race.
So it was fun to watch. And, I was corner marshaling going on to the lead on the straightaway. And I've never seen you drive as hard as you did. You pushed the car as hard as it would go. And I think you had 2 offs the whole race. So that's what a driver of that caliber can do. They can push the car and not come off. And Ian, the same way, you push the car as hard as you needed to. And it worked out. In the end, you're just a hair over a lap ahead. And that's all it takes.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think Ian and I were both talking about it. I had 2 offs the whole last 30 minutes. And the funny thing is, both my offs, I was by myself. Just pushing it. That's all it was. So I made 2 mistakes.
Well, Ian had one crash that wasn't his fault, and that allows you to close the gap a little bit, but then you had one of your offs and you gave it right back to him. So so it was a great race. Like you said, it was a strategic race. And that's what slot car racing can be when it's at that level and you've got guys of your caliber. So it was fun to watch, and I really enjoyed it just watching it. I hate to turn marshal the A main. Well, it's not too bad because these guys don't come off hardly at all, but you don't want to be the guy that screws up turn marshal. So, but it was fun to watch, and I had a great time watching the 2 of you.
Yeah, Jim, we appreciate everything that you've done for this sport. And you're the one who, I asked you all the questions when I first started building these cars.
You only call me 4 times a day for about 3 months.
Yeah,
you're going to hate me after a month. I hate you after a week, but other than that, but literally, you were calling me 3 or 4 times a day, which is fine. It's great. I mean, I've learned so much from you, from HO. Anything I can give back is great.
Oh, I picked your brain on everything, and I really do appreciate everything that you have taught me. Because of what you have done, that made me a good builder, and I do appreciate your help.
Appreciate it. Ian doesn't care.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. One couple more questions to go, but the fast guys are running in the 6.0, 6.1-ish. There's not too many people that ran below 6.3 the whole weekend. Rick, what do you think your average lap time for the whole race was?
I couldn't even tell you. I just the fact I'm still sitting here with a 2nd place trophy. I wanted to back that up, back-to-back wins.
Well, yeah, you are one of the most intense competitors I've ever met, and that's a compliment.
Well, thank you. But I have to hand it to Ian. He didn't falter. There's nothing I could have done. He did not falter. And boy, I pushed him for everything.
So anyway, back to the question. Rick,
Thanks, Rick.
your lap
Thank you.
average over the whole race, including the 2 offs and so forth, was 6.31.
And
What-
Ian's was?
You want to know how much you would have needed to beat him? He ran 6.28 for the whole race, including the
Ugh.
crashes. So 300ths of a
Wow.
second over, I forget the number of laps. It's 285 or something like that. So
Yeah.
it was that close. 1 lap difference is 300ths of a second over that number of laps. So it was very close. A lot of slot car races are typically 4 or 5 laps, but to be just a hair over 1 lap is a very close race. So again, it was
Yeah.
great. Going forward, now you're both retiring from what I understand, so you let somebody else win.
Well,
You had all the wins. You were dominating.
I did. I had a couple wins down there when it first started, and I was well ahead of the game. And last year, as long as we're going to talk about me a little bit, finishing second to Rick is obviously not something that it's great. I felt great after finishing second last year. I know given equal cars, he's going to beat me. If I have a little bit better car, maybe. But what it did for me personally is I went down there, like you said, the first 2 times and dominated the events. And I think a lot of people were saying after the first 2 races, well, everybody's caught up and Jim's really not that good. He just, he had superior cars and he beat us. But finishing second last year with 50 some odd people there, it was just, for me, it was a personal vindication. You know, people didn't say that to my face, and probably a lot of people didn't even think of it, but I'm sure some people did. So it was a vindication. I can run with the best, given equal cars. So that was great for me personally. Anyway, enough about me. Going forward for next year, since you're not retiring, there's been 2 things brought up, one publicly and one not so publicly, but I just want to ask your opinion on it. Minimum body weight.
if we're going to start adding weight to the bodies, and if we're going to start doing this like another manufacturer does at their big race, I don't know. I just think that everyone's got the same opportunity to build the car the same way.
Well, the obvious reason for that is to make the Nissan as heavy as the Porsche or the Jaguar or something like that. So there's a bigger variety, but that's.
You want to put the Jag back in there? Take those skirts off of it. Those things race both ways, with and without skirts. People just need to do a little research. You'll find out that they race both ways.
What about
let's get the 10 skirts off.
What about you, Ian, on the body weight?
So I'll answer that in two statements. One, I think the body weight's fine. I don't think it makes. I don't think that the body weight is going to suddenly change there being one fast car. I think that no matter what you do for a certain set of rules, there's going to be a car that ticks some boxes, and then some of the fast guys run it, and then everyone starts running it. I don't think it matters what the rules are.
The fast guys are still going to be the fast guys. No question about it.
Yeah. I think that if we really wanted to make it as even as possible, weight and track width are going to be the biggest factors. But yeah, I mean, I don't really see a big problem with it, to be totally honest with you. And I didn't see a problem with it last year. Like, ultimately, each year, Slotit sells a significant amount of cars for this race. Not like globally or anything, but a lot of people buy new cars for this race. And if we are changing the rules, I don't think it really makes a difference. Like, I don't think that it is going to really slow people down. I don't think that I think like the biggest thing is the tires, the track width, and just making it so that it's easier for people to not have so much work and headache versus adding variables, right? Like, the less variables there are, the easier it is for people to get up to speed.
Well, that's been brought up too, and it's a controversial subject, and it may or may not happen. Spec tire, what do you think? Or some, spec tire, handout tire, something to limit the tires. Any comments on that? We'll start with Rick again. Spec tires.
Yeah, you're taking away part of the building.
Okay.
And I think this is part of building a good race car. I had a bunch of different race cars out there, and I had a bunch of different tires out there. And it's not a secret on how to do these things. So, and the people who want to know come right up to me and go, hey, how are you doing your tires? And I tell them exactly how I'm doing it, down to the glue that I'm using. So I still like the fact that we should be able to use what tires that we want to. I'm just going to stick with that.
Okay, Ian, agree, disagree, or?
I mean, I see both sides. I think from a technical aspect, the building the car is half of the fun. Well, not half, but it's a significant part of the fun for me and the challenge,
Yeah.
right? Is that
It's a
you're
technical
going into
challenge,
it.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And I love that. So, trying to be creative with solutions and work within the rules is like something that I really, really enjoy. So if you take that away and you just make it a spec race, it's not quite as fun. But I also see the other side of it where, man, I alone had 10 different tire combinations, different tires, different wheel widths, the 10s, the 8s, the 8s with foams, 10s with foams, 10s without foams. It's just like, for me, that was my biggest headache. So if we're going to a spec tire, I'm kind of for that, in that it takes some of the guessing and the really difficult work out. But then I also see it from the technical standpoint, which is that it's when you make everything even, it kind of ends up sometimes being not even, because the good guys are actually going to make the distance between them and the slower guys even greater, because they know how to maximize that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. It's just a part of racing.
There's no right answer, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One last question, since we're talking about rules. Anything that you would change to the current rule set for next year if you had to, if you were Marco, what would you change anything, and if so, what?
Go ahead, Ian.
Oh, hello, Emma. Come on. Emma's already had her camera time. So what would I change? I don't think I would actually change much. I would like to see some limitation in the wheel and tire department. So just to reduce the variables. So whether that's like a spec wheel, like you have to run this particular part number, I'd be okay with that. But as far as the cars themselves go, I actually felt like my car this year was even better than last year. And I think that the rules now are actually a great fit for the cars. The cars handle fantastically. They're fast enough. I was joking around with Herman that, maybe we could do a faster motor. Maybe we don't even need to do a 23K motor. Maybe we do a 25K motor. I don't know.
I think
but
that
as far
might
as
take some of that tire prep out of it, because we're looking right now for a tire that has forward bite and very little rolling resistance and a very fine line.
Correct.
If we had more power, it might make that easier. So I would agree with that. Problem. I don't know if I want that, but I would agree with that assessment. Rick,
for sure.
For the 2 years that we've done this so far, and we changed the rules from last year, the wheel tire combination, to slotted wheels this year, still let the manufacturer open on tires. I'm good with that. I really do enjoy that part. Again, we're limited to where we can put the weights. You can only use the dog bones. You can only use the slot at once, and they only go in 2 different spots.
Yep.
So I enjoy what we have right now. And we did have different cars in the semis this year. I mean, we did have a Jag 10 with the skirts on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Porsche 962 in the A.
And in the A, which last year the top 12 cars were all Jags. So we did have a little bit more of a variable car this year. I kind of like where the rules are sitting right now. And as for width of cars and stuff like that, that little Nissan 89C was one of the narrower cars that were out there as well. I think the Mazda may have been a little narrower. The Jag 12 was definitely wider. It weighed more. And if we look at last year's totals, Jim, you and I did 178 and 176. Only Ian and I beat last year's race. We were the only two that went ahead of last year's race. If you would have done that this year, we would have finished third.
Yeah, and last year we were running the big car with the big steamroller tires on them.
Yeah.
So the development evolves and things get faster. It's just like real racing. They try to slow you down, but you figure a way to go faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gentlemen?
And I would like to say one more thing about that, just, since we're talking about it. Like I said, I'm okay with either direction, but I think as a sort of devil's advocate thing, in Formula One, when they change the rules, that's when the biggest jump happens, right? And we always sort of think about Formula One, what are good Formula One seasons? It's always like the 2 seasons leading up to a rule change where everything is stagnant and the field compresses. And so, it's really hard to know. Maybe if we kept the rules the same next year, even more cars will be up closer to that 6-1, 6-2 mark. But if we change it again, basically all the people who had challenges this year are going to have all new challenges next year, right? So it's just something to consider. Do you roll out, or do you continue with the rule set and roll all that tech into next year? Or do we basically start over? And it's, that's ultimately up to Marco and Maurizio.
And the only thing I'd personally like to see as far as the rules go is, and Marco, if you're out there, just get them out a little bit earlier so we have a little bit more time to work on stuff. That would be nice. Rick, Ian, I want to thank you both for being on here. I've known you guys for quite a long time. Rick, even longer. You're both really good friends of mine, and I appreciate you coming on. You're an asset to the sport. You're a little bit too good, but other than that, you guys are great. Anything you want to say? We'll start with Rick because he finished second. Any closing comments? Anything you want to say or thank or anything like that?
Walt Baines is part of the Jocham and Baines racing. He's done so much help with everybody out there and setting up cars, and I always have to shout out to Walt that, hey, thanks for setting us up, taking care of what we need, and I do appreciate that. To Ian and his group, my gosh, I mean, that's just the dark side cars right behind you, Jim. And
that's why I'm going like this, so you don't see it too much.
And that's what we've called Todd. Todd's gone to the dark side, which is those guys. It's just the NorCal group. And again, it's all kidding aside. That team did just one hell of a job. And it's always look forward to having you guys come down and race with us. And I know that when you guys come down, race is on. It's going to be a tough one. And Ian, man, congratulations. That was spectacular. Even from my point of view, racing against you, and especially that last heat, I gave you everything I had. You didn't falter. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I guess for me, I think Walt deserves a lot of credit on our side too. Just so shout out to Walt. He's always super gracious when we come down, and I know that there was that point where Walt was kind of not around as much, and it's really good to have him back, and I think it wouldn't be the same without him. So I hope he continues racing at Electric Dreams for a very long time. And yeah, definitely shout out to Todd, Herman, all the NorCal guys. I was really proud of everyone, and I was really proud of Herman because I actually finished and I had no idea he even got third. And then I kind of like hugged him, and then I like looked down and I was like, what the heck? And so I hugged him again because I had no idea, when you're in those races, you just kind of know where you are and the guy that you're trying to catch or the guy you're trying to hold off, that you don't know really where anyone else is. So I just want to give all the NorCal guys, a lot of shout outs. It was really cool because we had 4 cars in the main. We had 4 like West Boys dark side cars in the main, and it was a really cool feeling. And so I'm really proud of all of them. And I also just have to thank Rick because like Rick is really the reason that the racing down there is so good. He has elevated the program at Electric Dreams, and thus the 132 program in the United States, right? So I just want to give him a shout out too, that it's always a great race. And I always know that there's going to be a crazy challenge ahead of me.
Thanks, Ian. And you know, one more thing
Welcome.
too, and we cannot forget about this. Marco and the group at Electric Dreams. What an incredible job. They have to put up with, 72 different personalities, the craziness of race day with people walking around with microphones in their hands and having such a good time. And he's got control of everything. That whole group, they worked extra hours. They worked super hard. They deserve, a shout out to all those guys as well too. Thank you so much, Electric Dreams.
I'll echo that as well. I know Ian has said this many times. I've raced in RC racing and slot car racing and some big races, more big races in RC for me, world championships, things like that. These last two Slotit Nationals, bar none, best races I've ever been to.
Yeah, I agree.
And only part of it is the racing. It's the atmosphere.
Yes.
Everything he does, tours,
yes,
sitting down with the manufacturer, be able to talk one-on-one with Maurizio, have him introduce new stuff. So the event, even if he didn't race, the event was just spectacular.
Yeah. Maurizio putting this on for everybody, and 2 years in a row he's been over here. A short trip. It's not cheap to fly over here, and it's not cheap to stay here. And there he is supporting all of us.
And he raced too, and he's pretty darn good.
He is good. He's fast.
He was 13th. He just missed the semis. And I'm not quite sure whose car he built.
Yeah, Ian, how is that car, Ian?
I don't know. Todd has it right now.
Oh. Hey, Todd, can I get the car back?
So Rick had cars being driven by himself, me, that slot car guy, and Maurizio Ferrari.
Yeah, and a couple other guys too. Carlos.
That's a joke. It's actually Mario Alvarado, who's a Sacramento guy, and I think Rick mistakenly called him Carlos one time, so he's been Carlos ever since. But as long as you
Phil
give him a car,
had one of the cars.
As long as you give him a car, he didn't care what you called him. So thank you guys so much for coming on with this. I know Marco will do an interview with Ian and the winning car, and I didn't want to do something like that, so I wanted to do something totally different, talking about the mindset, the racecraft, and everything else. So this turned out to be exactly what I wanted. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jim. It's always a pleasure. And thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Ian. Man, you did it. And and I know what you're feeling right now. I know exactly what you're feeling. It's a pretty cool feeling.
It is.
I just want to say thanks again to Ian and Rick for taking the time to do this interview. I hope you enjoyed hearing what they're thinking throughout the course of the event. Thanks for watching. This is Jim Rose with NorCal Slot Car Scene, and we'll see you at next year's Slotit Nationals.